Hi there, I'm Mark Singleton and I'm the countryside manager here in Purbeck. So basically I manage the whole of the ranger team and all of our tenanted land and in-hand land over about 4,000 hectares.
Hi, my name is Ben Cook. I'm Area Ranger with the National Trust and I work here at Purbeck as part of a countryside team, and it's part of my role is to manage the land which is soon to become the joined up grazing unit.
I'm David Brown. I'm the ecologist for the National Trust in Purbeck, and my job is actually landscape partnership manager, so I'm about thinking beyond our boundaries for our land, really with understanding that we can do more for nature if we think bigger, at a bigger scale, bigger landscapes, and that means working in partnership with other landowners. So the grazing unit for me is a really exciting project within, not just locally, but actually within the whole of UK conservation, because what we're doing, we're taking lots of small pieces of land which have been managed really well for nature conservation for many, many years, but we're linking them together and creating one landscape in which nature kind of looks after itself. And in a sense what we're doing is we're rewilding. We're applying the principles of rewilding to a landscape that we already know is already really good for nature, and we think that rewilding is going to make it even better. Now, the reason why we're doing that is because we're focusing on grazing animals at the moment, because grazing, large herbivores are one of the key elements that we've lost from our natural ecosystems in this country. The big animals that pre-human history would have rampaged around the landscape, eating the vegetation, creating bare ground, creating disturbance, creating clearings in the forest, creating all that kind of real mosaic of habitats that nature thrives on. Most of those species are long since extinct now. We've lost our mammoths, our mastodons, our aurochs, our tarpans. And because of that, we've lost the engineers that create the diversity of habitat that all of our species need. What we're doing with the grazing unit, we can't bring those things back from the dead, but what we can do is start to look at how our modern day equivalents, our modern herbivores, can act as ecological proxies for those, their wild ancestors. So actually our cattle, our red Devon cattle, are not that dissimilar from an auroch. Our Exmoor ponies aren't that dissimilar from a tarpan. Our Mangalitsa pigs are actually quite similar to wild boar, and the deer we've got here, the Sika deer, actually behave very similarly to red deer. So we're looking at using our modern day herbivores, and by allowing them to behave in a more natural, what we call naturalistic way, which is kind of simulating the behaviour of wild herbivores, they're going to create a much more complex, much more intricate landscape with a lot more variety of habitats and microhabitats, which is where all the details are, where all the species live, where all the different plant species, the different insect species, the reptiles, the birds, and so on. It's going to create all the niches that they need. In a way that's it's not going back to what we had prehistory, because we can't do that, but it's reintroducing those processes that would have once shaped our landscape, and we think can do again in the future.
So at the moment we're managing quite heavily using tractors, flails, chainsaws, really carbon heavy way of managing the land. The idea behind this is that we can take a lot more hands-off approach, using those animals to create the niche habitats, the bare ground, the right grazing, the trampling that these specialist species have evolved on.
I've been working as an ecologist now for 25 years. Why do I keep doing it? It's obviously, it's not for the money. You work in this career because it's incredibly rewarding. But why do I keep doing it now? I think in many ways now is the most optimistic time of my career, which may seem a bit counterintuitive. All the bigger picture news is really doom and gloom. It's we know we're in a real time of ecological crisis, but actually here locally we are recovering nature. There's a lot of Purbeck is probably richer in nature than it was 50 years ago now, and to be part of that, to be able to be working in an area that on the one hand is one of the most biodiverse bits of the whole of the UK, and secondly it's getting better. That's really inspirational. That's a really exciting thing to be part of. So there is a feeling of privilege, actually, being able to work here, being able to be part of joining up land together and making it thrive for nature again. But there's also a sense of real opportunity, and we are in a genuinely once in a generational opportunity to really transform our landscape for nature. And that's all linked with changes in farming. So on the heathland with the Purbeck Heath grazing unit, the joined up grazing unit, maybe that's less the case. I mean, that's been a landscape that's been looked after with nature at its heart for many years already. But the bigger landscape around it, land which has been sort of forced into ever more industrial farming in many cases, for the last 50 years, suddenly we're at a point where farming is changing and the economics of that old intensive farming aren't going to stack up now we come out of a common agricultural policy, and that creates fantastic opportunity for landowners to do things differently, and we're seeing that all around us. There's landowners wanting to change the way they manage their land, recognising that land that's great for nature is also great for people. It's also great in terms of storing carbon, in terms of cleaning the water. It's what we need from our land, and so I think it feels like in Purbeck we're a bit at the forefront of that. Not just what the National Trust is doing, but what a whole range of partner organisations are doing, and that's an exciting story to be part of.
The hope is that we'll make a lot more sustainable in the future, enable us to manage at a landscape scale, working with our partners such as the RSPB, Amphibian Reptile Conservation Trust, and Natural England. It will, basically enable us to be a lot less intensive in the management of that land. So through natural grazers, kind of proxies to the kind of megafauna, the large herbivores which would have been here in the Pleistocene, and basically using proxies to create all kinds of niches and opportunities for the rare species which live in these habitats.
Okay, so I think what message does this project give to other people? I'd like to think it gives a bit of a message of hope. Actually, despite all the incredibly sort of bleak scenario, the backdrop that we're living within, actually you can do things even in a really crowded island like the United Kingdom. You can find space for nature. We can learn to live alongside it, and actually doing so is really is inspirational for the people who are living there. And I think it is possible to reverse that decline in nature. It's possible to bring functioning ecosystems back, and it's possible to bring people along with you as well. One of the things we've done here, I think we talk about ecological change, it's actually also economic change. We're moving away from a landscape where people were employed through farming and forestry and quarrying towards a landscape where people are employed through ecotourism, through sustainable land management for sustainable food production and so on. And our economics are sort of, are moving along with us as well. So I think the hope, the message of hope that I think this project can transmit more widely is that nature conservation doesn't have to be something that necessarily has a huge net cost to society. It can actually create a landscape which is a real economic resource as well. It's just a different sort of economic resource from just growing crops or growing timber. And it produces huge range of wider benefits for people too. So yeah, I think message of hope.